Troy, there you are. I'm going to share my screen here on XCOM 2 with you so you're able to see it. Welcome, everybody, to XCOM 2, War of the Chosen. This is more a class showcase and explanation video. I saw some Reddits, I know how old this game is, but I feel like people really don't understand a lot of the depth to a lot of these classes. I know this game is old as hell now, and a lot of people probably don't care about it, but I also know this game kicked a lot of people's asses. A lot of people figured out it kind of has an inverse difficulty curve to some degree, which is absolutely true. My co-commentator is Troy over here. He is another YouTuber who is actually currently more successful than I am right now. My name's Jeff. He actually is the one who taught me how to play games like XCOM. In terms of looking at soldiers from a class-based perspective, I figured I would go down the list of all of the classes that are available in XCOM 2 Vanilla, and we'll predominantly be talking about what these classes do on their own, and then what they do together. Don't worry about the bond system here, don't worry about Vados talking over here, she's just letting me know about a black site and whatnot and stuff.
And the final march for those humans, deceived by the elders.
We will be going over how each class kind of gels with other classes, and to some degree what makes each class actually its own and work really well. Yes? That's true, actually, to a degree, yes. The reason why I say class synergy is a lot of people really like to look at these classes on their own and argue what this class does by itself. The reason why I feel like that is absolutely a crappy way of looking at this is because your squad is not really ever meant to be split up. There are instances where it can be, there are instances where it can be shrunk from its bigger number, but it is not really ever meant to split up, because splitting up was something that I had as a major issue with this game over the course of my time playing it, especially when the difficulty gets higher. The entire point of these classes is to get your soldiers to work together. Now, some classes can work really well with others of the same class. Other classes don't necessarily do that as well. They still technically can if you do it right, but they don't do it as well, I think. And we'll go ahead and start off with the Ranger, just to get us going in terms of what a Ranger is, what a Ranger can do, and I'm going to adjust this Ranger's loadout slightly because these weapons are DLC weapons. They're not necessarily what everyone's going to be playing with, or what everyone might play with if they choose to pick up XCOM. I know XCOM recently went onto a massive sale, and it's been on sale for a while, and that's part of, on top of my recent obsession with this game, why I wanted to pick this up and do this video. Particularly after visiting some Reddits and seeing a lot of people try and rate classes. A lot of people try to rate sharpshooters as absolute bargain bin garbage. They might require a tiny little bit more of setup and positioning care than other classes. That's some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard, because sharpshooters have been the heart and soul of the vast majority of my murder hobo in this game. And they only get deadlier as they get higher tier. hello, baby. Yes, yes, you absolutely can. Yes. Yes, and that's kind of why I feel like this video was necessary. Looking at a lot of Reddits and seeing that kind of shit. I know Reddit's not always the best place to look for where the community actually views a class. A lot of the places that I was going to all really tried to shit on sharpshooters. I think a lot of people do not understand the point of sharpshooters, and if you do, you haven't played this game if you do, it's probably because you played this game at higher difficulty tiers and levels. Because I predominantly play this game on normal, and sharpshooters can trivialize the absolute fuck out of the game, particularly as they get higher tier. Never by themselves, but class synergy is one of the things that I wanted to discuss. You were gonna say something, Troy? Yes, looking at Rangers, we're going to look at Rangers first, and we'll go ahead and focus down on Rangers to start. Rangers are your bread and butter scouts, bread and butter melee mongers, and bread and butter assault units. If you want aggression, one of the very first places you typically go to in XCOM 2 is a Ranger. If you want somebody who can scout for you, one of the very first places you typically always go to is a Ranger. The only class that is capable of beating out Rangers as scouts is the War of the Chosen DLC class, the Reaper. And we will get to the Reaper as a discussable class later. It has certain abilities that allow it to effectively function even better than this class would as a scout. However, if you're just playing XCOM 2 Vanilla, and I feel like discussing the difference between Vanilla and War of the Chosen is important with these classes, because not everybody's going to play War of the Chosen, not everybody's going to play Vanilla. Some people like War of the Chosen better, some people like the Vanilla version better, it doesn't matter. What matters is that this is your bread and butter front line and scout. Why? First of all, this class predominantly is the only class in the game that can use shotguns. Shotguns tend to have a level of limited critical hit modifier potential. They have slightly higher damage than assault rifles. These classes, you will notice, are one of, I believe, actually I think this is the only class in the game that can equip multiple different types of weapons. Because it can equip assault rifles, or it can equip shotguns. I normally keep this class always sticking to shotguns, unless I have researched a higher tier weapon, and I know it's going to be a long time before I can research a next tier shotgun to match. And I feel like I'm not getting enough out of the shotgun at that current level. Usually that doesn't happen to me, but I don't typically play on Legendary. On Legendary, I know, Troy, you spoke to me that you do sometimes actually do this because of exactly that reason. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I am absolutely able to do that. That's why I actually wanted to do this from the hub menu first, in the main opening area, so that if necessary, we could go into the guerrilla tactics menu in the other areas to work on this. I believe so, yeah. Yeah, let's go back to view soldiers and actually look at that.
I don't like the fact that we're chasing another set of coordinates into the
Yeah,
middle
the
of
bonus
nowhere.
the bonus critical
We've done
damage
it
is literally
before,
4
and we
more
didn't
points
like what we
onto its
found
base
then
damage.
either.
The base damage of a
Wilderness
shotgun
or
is anywhere
not,
between 5 to
the
7,
aliens could be setting
so
up
this
an
can do up
ambush,
to 11
or
damage.
worse for all we know.
Oh no, it's
Our
4 to
people will
6,
be
excuse
prepped
me.
and ready for
And
a
then its
fight.
bonus critical damage is plus
just wish
3,
we
so
had
it's up
more
to
to
9
go on.
damage. And because I have a shotgun damage breakthrough. Absolutely, and that's definitely one thing that I've found about Rangers that is incredible early game is their shotgun damage is absolutely absurd, and it only gets better as the game goes along. Like this is not a class that gets weaker as it goes. It's a class that gets like, and more or less every class does this, but this class only gets like incrementally way nastier to deal with as it grows. Particularly if you want to talk about up close and combat brutality. In terms of weapon attachments, the 2 attachments I like the most personally when when working with a shotgunner, I like to increase the magazine capacity with a superior magazine magazine to give it plus, I think it's 3 or 4 more points to the magazine, so it can fire up to about 7 or 8 times. And I like to give it a superior laser sight. Pretty much any kind of laser sight is great because this weapon has a base level of critical hit chance. And that's never a bad thing to have. As you can see there, it's like 10% critical hit chance. A superior laser sight gives it an extra 15%. So you're looking at roughly 1 in 4 is automatically a critical hit as you fire with that gun. And you can... Yeah, that crit chance will increase as proximity increases, and it also dramatically increases if you manage to achieve a flank or an exposed shot. You're looking at around 50 to 60%, I think, at maximum critical hit potential, but by that point you basically have to be in melee range to do that, which the shotgun does get bonuses from if you're literally 1 tile away. But that's what I prefer to stick on my shotguns. That's not necessarily what you have to do. That's what I like to do in order to be able to keep shooting and not reload, as well as maximize the chance that this weapon is just going to demolish whatever I shoot it at. Next is the sword melee weapon that this class has for its secondary. This is the other part of why this class is an absolute fucking Terminator. It starts out with a standard sword that has 10% base crit chance, deals 3 to 5 damage. It can attack adjacent enemies with this. You will almost never use the basic sword as you go. You will still find instances where you use it, but it's not going to be particularly common because usually the shotgun is safer. However, there are certain instances where the AI is often dumb enough to expose itself. You will be able to just run up and cut somebody in half and actually be able to direct where they will stand so they are behind some level of cover.
The only time you use it on high difficulty is against one, a sectoid if you chose Blade Master,
Yes.
or 2, if it's the end of the mission and your ranger has not reloaded, which is very common when you're under time pressure on Legendary.
Yes.
You don't have a lot of time to reload, and most of the time, 4 attacks is all you're going to manage
That's
on your first couple of missions.
That's true. In terms of upgrade tiers, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the sword because as it upgrades, it gets a little more interesting. It turns into an arc blade when it hits tier 2. It becomes semi more useful at this stage. It gets a 25% stun chance, The one issue I have with the arc blade is that it doesn't effectively get a blue screen effect on enemies, so that it would deal extra damage to mechanized and mechanical units, because almost every bonus damage type that you use is either electricity, electromagnetics, or something of the two. And I feel like this weapon kind of could benefit from that, because it would actually make the arc blade more usable and more arguable for use. The 25% stun chance, though, is still pretty valuable. You can use it in situations where you are really kind of down and out, and you need something to work with, maybe having a chance at stunning an enemy. But typically, by the point you start relying on a 1 in 4 stun chance, you've probably been fucking yourself over for a while. Yeah. Yeah, and then finally we have the Fusion Blade. This is the only katana that well, it's not a katana. It's closer to a machete in design, actually, almost, if you look at it. This sword is honestly the only sword that, in my opinion, is even remotely remarkable. The reason why is because it can set enemies on fire. It deals a pretty hefty damage amount when it attacks, for what you get out of swords. The only problem that I have with this weapon is setting an enemy on fire is situational. There are some enemies you absolutely do not want to get off any of their special skills. I would argue things like an Advent Priest would be a good example, because Advent Priests love to try and mind control and panic your units, and that's a problem. Setting them on fire stops them from doing that. Problem. You have to expose yourself to use this. On higher difficulties, I imagine, if you don't use this particularly correctly as a resort to stopping that, you may have just killed your ranger. But it is a acceptable means of stopping certain enemies from using particularly frustrating skills. In a lot of cases, they're enemies that are just especially annoying to deal with. The reason why Troy references killing sectoids with melee weapons a lot, one of the hidden mechanics behind a sectoid is it actually has a strong melee vulnerability. It takes increased damage from melee weapons, about, I think, 2 to 3 points more by default, just because it hits. Critical hits are even worse. Yes. Yes. Correct. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Fusion Axe, because this is a weapon I'm actually pretty familiar with. The Fusion Axe is an Alien Ruler DLC weapon. It is the Tier 3 version of the hunting axe that was crafted to oppose the Alien Rulers. It's a melee weapon that's built to have 10% more base crit chance than the swords. You will notice that it is a paired set of weapons. There's a reason for that. You do not swing these in pairs. The second axe actually is for granting you a one-time axe throw ability that counts as a free action that allows you to hurl an axe at an enemy. It counts as a melee attack, so if the enemy has melee immunity, they will not take damage from it. But it cannot be melee countered by mutons, because it is still also technically a ranged attack. The Fusion... Yes, and the Fusion Axe is basically just a slightly more likely to critical hit melee weapon beyond that, so it's not that different. You will only ever get one, period, at all. So if you lose it on a soldier that you didn't pick up or that got killed, guess what? You're never getting that axe back, period. Unless you upgrade the axe into a magnetic axe or a fusion axe, or a plasma axe, which is the fusion axe, whichever you have available as an option. And you will only ever get it back that one time. If you lose it again after that upgrade, it's fucking gone. Next is the Plasma Bolt Caster. This is the Tier 3 version of the Anti-Alien Ruler weapon. The Alien Rulers are a series of 3 enemies that do not respawn and do not get remade in the game after they die.
They would take not only our power and
the Bolt Caster is crafted as one of a few additional weapons in order to help counter them. And that is because you will notice that stun chance over on the right, 20% base. That is the stun chance it has against anything that is not an alien ruler. If it's shot at an alien ruler, you are flipping a coin. It's a 50-50 chance to stun that enemy and reduce their chances at giving reactions. You will also notice that the Plasma Bolt Caster deals increased damage over shotguns. This is one of the most powerful weapons in the game. It's on par with sniper rifles for damage. And the reason for that is that you have a magazine size of 1. This thing cannot be given any modular upgrades or attachments, and you'll also notice that it is a base aim bonus of plus 15%. This is to help make sure that when you fire it, you don't miss, because obviously, since it is a 1-round capacity weapon, you don't want to miss. There are 3 classes capable of using this weapon: Rangers, Specialists, and Psi Operatives. This weapon had better be on a Ranger or a Psi Operative if you're going to use it. Why? Because Specialists can get a skill card Guardian that may or may not allow them to have multiple Overwatch shots. And they can't keep shooting if they run out of ammo. I still like using this even after I've killed the Alien Rulers, and we'll talk about the Alien Rulers a little bit more later. That's not really that big of a deal. In terms of armor, a lot of people may wonder what's ideal for armor to give these guys. Rangers are fine, really, with almost any armor. The Serpent armor is really good for them, because it shoots their dodge up to 40 and gives them additional mobility. You'll also notice it gives them a little bit more health than the Warden armor, but they don't get the armor point from the Warden armor. Icarus armor is not very good for them. The Teleport and Vault is nice, but this class is so agile and mobile and needs to be kept so close to the front lines, it doesn't really need this. There's another class that would actually benefit more from Icarus armor, and we'll get to that when we get to it. In terms of the 2 other armor types, the Spider/Wraith or the Exo/Warsuits, this class, in my opinion, benefits more from a Warsuit slash Exosuit, because the heavy weapons that it can get can allow it to use some pretty nasty tools. And after you've used the Skulljack once with this class, you really don't need anything other than a heavy weapon to demolish enemies. Now, if you're going to give them Warden armor, this secondary utility item slot is never a bad thing to give something like Dragon Rounds, Smoke Bombs, Blue Screen Rounds. You can give them a medkit if you want. Honestly, that's not the best thing to give them, but it's not bad. Battle Scanners. Absolutely. Yeah, specialization, I would actually argue, is probably the way to go with this game. I work with a general purpose kind of mentality myself, like what's the most useful stuff in most situations? Okay, I'll take that. But honestly, specialization is sometimes a lot more mandatory than you might think with that. Dragon Rounds I actually predominantly use for the Royals, which, now that the Royals are dead in this playthrough, I won't really have to worry about them, but I'm going to explain Dragon and Venom rounds anyway. You get these from doing experimental ammunition in the Proving Grounds. They're one of a ton of different ammo types that can come out of them. The reason why I say use Dragon and Venom rounds against most of the rulers, don't use Venom rounds against the Viper King, he's immune to poison, obviously, is every royal reaction that a royal alien will take, and they basically react to anything like Overwatch in their presence within their eyesight, or any attack on them, or certain movement actions, they will take DOT at the start of that reaction turn because it counts as a new turn. You want to use Dragon rounds on them because it will consistently take 2 points of health off of them, off of each of their turns. And in particular on high difficulties, these enemies have anywhere between 45 to 60 hit points. That's a shitload of damage, and they only get more durable as you fucking go. Correct. So Dragon rounds are still viable even when you're not using them against the alien rulers. However, they're especially viable against the alien rulers because of the major tick damage. I don't think they inhibit the alien rulers quite as much as they would other units, but the tick damage is pretty much the main reason you do this. The other... Sorry. Yeah, it typically deals 2 to 3. Venom rounds will weaken an enemy by lowering mobility and accuracy. Yeah, and 30% is actually more than noticeable. That can also often mean the difference between life or death on an enemy you cannot counter, so always consider ammunition when you unlock the ability to do tactical rigging on your soldiers. No class will not benefit from ammunition. No class doesn't benefit from having ammunition. The only class that I would argue you probably shouldn't give a shit about the ammo to is a Psi Operative. And the only reason I say that is because they will spend the vast majority of their time using their abilities, not their gun. If they are using their gun, it is usually because you have exhausted all other powers that would already be a better solution to the problem. And you still have more problems, which on lower difficulties does not happen that often, but it still can, and on higher difficulties probably will happen. Now we also need to talk about the ability sets of the Ranger, because Rangers are ability heavy. You might notice that I put both Phantom and Blade Master on this unit. I will explain very briefly how the fuck I did that, because you're not normally supposed to do that. Where is the... Here it is, the Training Center. The Training Center allows you to basically go in, and if the unit has bonded with another class, archetype, character, they can pick up skills they don't normally have. Or they can pick up skills they actually forego for other skills. Because normally, these skill sets up here in this pathway, you have to choose between them in order to be able to decide how you want to go. So normally I'd have to choose between Phantom and Blade Master. I initially took Blade Master, if I recall correctly, and then picked up Phantom later. I took Blade Master because it increases the aim of the sword / axe weapons that they get, and it also increases their damage by an extra 2 points. And these classes get particularly nasty later when you combine that with Blade Storm, which allows them to automatically attack any enemy that tries to enter or exit or attack in melee range. This basically allows them, this combo, to get a lot of free damage out on certain enemy units, like chrysalids, which are melee-centric as fuck, and if they are burrowed around a map and you don't have scanning protocol because you forgot to take it or you used it up, this is pretty much your best answer, is a Blade Storm Ranger in a lot of ways. Because this gives them at least a chance to attack the chrysalid and damage them so that they won't take hits themselves. Phantom, however, is also an equally useful skill because when the squad gets revealed, this particular soldier remains concealed. You might wonder what you can do with that. Well, first of all, you can allow this soldier to remain concealed until it is obviously clear that this soldier needs to help the squad, and then
Shen
use them as a
managed to
scout
pull
for
a
the
set of
remainder of the
encoded
mission until its
coordinates from
stealth
a
has
file we
exhausted its
recovered at the
value
alien
over
black
needing to
site.
engage with the
And
rest
it
of the
looks like
party.
we're headed towards another
Or
as
you
of
can
yet
use this to
unidentified
scout
facility.
ahead for a
There
sniper
are a bunch of
and let the
theories floating around as to
sharpshooter
what we'll
pop and
find,
drop
but
fools
at this point,
from
I'm not
extreme
ready to
range
commit to anything
outside
until
of their
I see
vision
for
radius
myself.
while the enemy is wondering where the hell they're getting their faces blown off from. Anybody wondering why a sharpshooter is an S tier unit? Take a Phantom Ranger into combat and let the Phantom scout for him while he's in high ground. You will very quickly see why you're a moron for thinking a sharpshooter is anything but a good unit. Next is the difference between Shadow Step and Shadow Strike. I always take Shadow Step because there are a lot of enemies in the mid to late game that like to use and sometimes abuse Overwatch. Advent mechs are a good example. Any Advent soldier can do the same thing. This allows this soldier to move freely when an enemy does use Overwatch or has a reaction fire ability, and some of them do, and not trigger the Overwatch. The reason why this is ideal is because after the soldier is exposed, if an ally is in range of an enemy and they set themselves to Overwatch, that ally now has to basically roll the dice as to whether or not they're going to get shot trying to go somewhere if they need to move. And typically if the enemy has a ranged Overwatch, you needed to move. If you move your ranger instead of moving anything else, your ranger can fly around, flank the enemy that's overwatched, and get in a good shot to break the overwatch without triggering it. Shadow Step allows these units to be the kind of combat rogues that say fuck you to anybody who tries to lock down their movement. And that's incredibly valuable. Shadow Strike is nice, but the reason I never take this skill is because it is literally a one and done. You get concealment once, you take advantage of Shadow Strike once. It can often mean the difference between whether or not you hit and kill a particularly frustrating enemy, I know, but it is literally a one and done. This is useful an entire fucking mission post concealment, and it will stay useful every mission. So for me, what I can get the most consistent value of is absolutely what I'm going to go with. Troy, I don't know if you have a different commentary on that particular situation. Right. Right, and there's no reason not to. Also, difficulty variation is something I wanted to discuss anyway, and that's largely why I wanted you on this stream. Right. I think they have 9 actually, but I don't remember. I know the heavy mech has like 15, 18 points, and they get 3 to 4 points of armor. So heavy mechs at that point just like they're fucking slathered in armor, but that's later game. Right. Right. Okay. So there are actually arguments to take this skill for is essentially what's going on, particularly from a mathematics standpoint. This is kind of why I tend to look at concealment as use it when you need it, but don't rely on it too much. Concealment is not always ideal to maintain, particularly if your other soldiers are starting to struggle and they really very clearly need that extra gun. That concealment has clearly run its course. Know when to shed your concealment, I guess is what we're trying to say. Yeah, use it appropriately. It is another resource that you have. Yes. Because while this is a limited resource, you also have to acknowledge most missions are not going to take that long, and most missions are not going to necessarily involve too much conflict. Well, yes, that's not the point I'm making. Yes. Yeah. It's also worth noting that the training grounds is a War of the Chosen restricted structure, if I remember correctly. It will allow you, whenever you build it, I didn't get to build this until near late game, but it will allow you to build it, and then once you've built it, you don't have to choose between these abilities. Go out, get some ability points in a fight, and then the units that you want to have certain skills that you couldn't take before, just purchase them. Like, Conceal. I'll purchase this just to show you guys. This is a really fucking good upgrade to get, because once you hit Lieutenant rank, Conceal and Run and Gun are both amazing fucking options. There is no wrong choice here. I want to make that clear. There is no wrong choice here. There's not necessarily a wrong choice here either. Even on Legendary, this is still not necessarily the wrong choice, because it, say you can't kill that mech, even if you maybe even if you had that, and it wasn't ideal. What if that mech had Overwatch, and at the very least, this allowed you to break that Overwatch by moving into the right position and blasting the son of a bitch. The squad mates who were then locked down are now free to maneuver and do what they need to just take him down. The math can still solve itself. Like, there's arguments
The
to and
aliens
from, and
have
this is
always
not to
been
destroy
monsters.
Troy's argument for
From
Shadow
the very
Strike.
beginning of
This is
one
just to
failed
offer another
science
alternative, because you
experiment
could
after
debate this
another.
shit all day if you really wanted to.
With the Advent forces,
But this
they
is
tried
just
to
a
disguise it.
baseline to help explain
They're
to
no
you
different underneath
where
all
you
that
will
armor.
find this useful, because
Now it
mechs
comes
are
to
a very
this.
fucking common
An entire
problem.
facility dedicated to
And
wiping us
particularly
out.
on Legendary, they are a
Not just
problem.
that, but turning us into what?
But Run and Gun allows them
concentrated
to
using
basically
God
use
knows.
both of their action
We should have
points
known the elders
and then
would
take
return.
any other action they might want
have known
after
that.
doing so.
Never left.
This is a very, very, very powerful move. If the Ranger needs to rush over to help somebody who is a little bit further away than normal, or run back up to catch back up with the squad, or even dash the fuck away from a pod they accidentally triggered on an Iron Man, this can help them do that, but do that safely, because it can allow them to hunker down, set an Overwatch, fire on somebody after they pull back, if that's even conceivable, which there are instances where it can be, it's just not that often, or throw a grenade or something to be able to mitigate what's going to come after them. Run and Gun has a ridiculous amount of uses. Typically what I like to use it for is piling on pressure. But on higher difficulties, you may not always be able to use it to pile on pressure so much as try to take pressure off. And that's kind of my main argument for Run and Gun. However, there's another argument for concealment. This allows you to immediately re-enter concealment once permission. A Stealth Ranger, as we have already just discussed, whether you take Shadow Strike or not, is an incredibly valuable asset. One of the best assets you could possibly ask for is a unit that can act as a scout for you in a wide variety of ways. One that can allow your grenadiers to be able to hurl grenades from outside enemies' usual vision range using their grenade launchers and their enhanced range. One that can allow snipers to pick motherfuckers off with way less risk and less exposure. One that can also be used to check the patrol routes of an enemy on missions where you're not timed, so that you can set up an ambush that the enemy will literally waltz the fuck into. This allows you to be able to retain the option to use your concealment again for everything that I just mentioned and more. Go ahead, Troy, I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you, sweetie. Wonderful. Sorry. But yeah, like, yeah, go ahead. Yes. This is actually true. You can use this to dash even further than you normally would if you don't want to shoot your gun off. Oh, okay, never mind, I misread that. Yes. And it's worth noting because on higher difficulties you may need to do that. Hell, on lower difficulties you still might need to do that. Next is another actually really difficult choice. Implacable and Blade Storm. Implacable allows you to, basically if you score... Implaceable? Okay. You've been calling it implacable. Don't lie to me. Yes, you have. I'm gonna slap the shit out of you. If you score one or more kills on your turn, you are granted a single bonus move. This allows you to be able to effectively kill an enemy or multiple enemies and then move again. This is actually a very useful skill. It can get you out of a lot of bullshit, out of a lot of problems, many of which you might accidentally walk yourself the fuck into because you can't always fully see through the fog of war on a battlefield. But what? For honestly, say you have to attack a pack of enemies, blowing one of those enemies away, and you realize that you are in a bit more of an exposed position than you'd like, and you cannot stop all of the retaliation. Use this to move to a position where you will suffer either less retaliation or have much better cover for when it comes. That is kind of the main use that I see for a skill like this. It's not necessarily the only reason you'd want to use it, though. I'm honestly way more familiar with Blade Storm, so I'll let you talk about Implaceable instead while I go grab some food. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yes. I remember that. I might go after that later. Sorry. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you, I've literally never taken this skill. Just because I feel like Blade Storm is so mandatory, but that's just me. Right. Oh my god, that is so good. Alright, Blade Storm. What I know about Blade Storm, particularly on the War of the Chosen restricted Templar class, which we'll get to later,
You saw the same
Blade
things I
Storm
did
is
in
one of
that
the most
facility.
broken skills in the game.
So now you should understand why I've kept my people away
It's
from
not
their cities all
necessarily
this
the
time.
most broken skill, period.
The aliens offered up
But
miracle
it is
cures,
one of the more broken
and they weren't
skills
lying.
that you can abuse,
Death
at
does
least on lower
cure
difficulties.
all
I
ailments.
imagine it's not quite as powerful on higher difficulties, but this skill, literally, if an enemy charges you in melee range or tries to run away from you while they're in melee range, the ranger automatically makes a melee strike at them. If they try to attack you while you're in melee range, then the ranger will automatically make an attack with their sword. Their sword is not often quite as powerful as their shotgun, particularly without adding Blade Master and Sword Breakthrough and a few other things. The Sword Breakthrough is restricted to War of the Chosen, but it can further increase your damage. Basically, what I like to use Bladestorm for is a very nasty combination of things. One is a safety net. A safety net for advancing my front line, because chrysalids have this weird little mechanic where they burrow in the ground like a Zerg, and if you get within a certain distance of the fuckers while they're burrowed, they will pop back out of the ground and get a free charge and stab at you. That's exactly what it is. It's Overwatch for... I was gonna say exactly that! You beat me to it. It's literally Overwatch melee. And what I like to use Bladestorm as is I like to use Bladestorm for a counter to that, because this class is supposed to be my main scout anyway. And because I almost always have them equipped with shotguns, they're basically always up front regardless, and they should be up front. If you're doing, if you're playing the game well, then typically your rangers are out in front always. There's almost never an instance where you want them at your back as opposed to in front of the enemy. There are circumstances, particularly in War of the Chosen, where you might want to do that, but in XCOM 2 Vanilla, that really shouldn't be happening. Bladestorm allows you to be able to counter that, but it also allows you to counter a wide variety of other enemies. If Archons try to move into melee, because sometimes they do like to melee, and they actually have a pretty strong melee attack, Bladestorm, melee counter. If it hits, it stops their melee attack. Berserkers try to charge you. Bladestorm, melee counter. If it hits, you've stopped their melee attack, and they've wasted their turn. It's not, really? That must be because they're melee only units and they don't really have another way to fight. Well, what I mean is I think it's supposed to cancel the attack that they would have made at that particular moment, not, oh, you set them on fire, now they just can't melee, period. No, I think when Bladestorm triggers as a reaction effect, if the attack that's made against the enemy hits them, it stops them that time. Is what I mean. Oh, okay, they can still melee. I don't play this on as high a difficulty, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted him along, to tell me if that happens. I'm getting ready to do a legendary playthrough at some point, and I needed that information. The other thing I like to use this with is applying pressure to clustered enemies. Sometimes enemies that are stupid enough to cluster in cover. Why? Attack 1, position your soldiers so that they are in melee range of every enemy. Most enemies' reactions to that is to get the fuck out of dodge, which will trigger the Bladestorm effect to give you free bullshit stabs on every motherfucker who tries to walk away from you. It's like they turn into a Beyblade and they're like, you get a slash, you get a slash, you get a trip to a body bag. It literally is defensively one of the best things for you. It's very useful as well for dealing with faceless to an extent. Because To an extent. Hold on. To an extent. Hear me out here, because it's not useful against them in that you can just automatically have them run at you and that'll work. Not necessarily. Because the thing about Faceless is they have I believe it's a 2-tile radius swipe attack I think it's a semicircle sphere around them, and that attack will outrange Bladestorm. That's not good. What you can use this for, however, with those guys, that does actually make it good, and this is where you have to hear me out. Number one, on retaliation missions, you don't know who's a civilian and who's a Faceless. A Bladestorm Ranger can get up close to those civilians to rescue them. If they turn into a Faceless and you still have somebody else who can shoot the Faceless enough to put it within 1-hit kill range from Bladestorm. It's semi-risky, but only semi-risky. Because if the Ranger triggers Bladestorm, which it will because the Faceless will not fall back in order to attack, it will attack first, Bladestorm will trigger and it usually almost always kills them. There are circumstances where this can be bad. In those circumstances, you need to not be dumb. And that is, first of all, make sure that you can actually kill a Faceless and get away with it. This is not something that you just do freely. If you know there's a pod of enemies dangerously close by that you could or would trigger when you're Faceless hunting, don't do this. Don't do this because it will get you killed. It will probably cost you your Ranger. It might cost you somebody else. The reason why I offer it as an option is because it's one of the many ways that I hunt Faceless, and it has proven a reliable tactic as long as I make sure that the Ranger is backed up appropriately and I don't overextend. And that's a big thing about Bladestorm. This is not an excuse for you to overextend this fucking unit. This is not a 100% safety net. It helps. It really, really helps. But it's not always a guarantee. Do it right, and know when to use this as your option. It's good against Faceless. It's not the best idea with Faceless. More often than not, honestly, the best idea with Faceless is to shoot those motherfuckers in the face without getting close to them. But, the best way to deal with Faceless is battle scanners, scanning protocol. Scanning protocol is a specialist skill, and it's one of the most slept-on skills in the game if the places that I have visited are anything to go by. Because so many motherfuckers try to treat specialists and more than half their skills like they are meh as fuck. All of these people are morons. By default. I'm sorry. On a factual base, you're a moron, if that's what you believe. What that tells me is you don't know how to specialist. That's literally what that tells me. But Bladestorm is an excellent skill for just helping you take some of the pressure off, or in the right circumstances, particularly for starting an Overwatch ambush, actually applying a shitload of pressure. Because you'll rip off most of the enemy's HP. You might even kill a couple enemies from a clustered pod if you position your attack correctly. And when they try to run, the Overwatch triggers from the rest of the squad and everyone fucking drops. This can be a very useful piece of an Overwatch ambush if you do it right. But that's kind of my take on Bladestorm. It's reasonable, it's functional, it is a little situational, it's not necessarily a perfect skill, but I'll be real with you, it's more useful than you probably think it is. And that's why I tend to take Bladestorm, is because it can actually be really helpful.
It's dark, it's dank, and it's mostly metal. This ship isn't all that
against
different from
more
the old
enemies
base.
than I usually consider. Next is choosing between deep cover and untouchable. I always take untouchable because it's extremely rare for me not to attack with my Ranger unless they're already in concealment. If they're in concealment, I don't need deep cover. Deep cover has its uses, and I'm sure Troy is probably going to make me look particularly silly here because I bet money he's got a really good case for deep cover. But untouchable basically guarantees that the very first attack against you misses flat out on the very next enemy phase if you have made a kill that turn. And making kills with Rangers is not hard. They're actually one of the more aggressively effective unit types in the game. Troy, what's your advocation for deep cover? Because I honestly don't find that many uses for it personally. There you go, he just made me look silly, and all it took was one sentence. Oh, shit. Oops. Wrong one. Oh, shit! Okay, yeah, that's actually really useful after all. Fuck. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Usually. Oh. So that drops them to 35 to 40 to 45 aim by default right there. No, I mean like just with hunker down, because Aid Protocol gives plus 20 to start, plus 30 with an advanced gremlin, and I believe it's plus 40 with the Mark III gremlin. Which will basically guarantee that soldier's survival and that the enemy wastes an entire turn trying to shore up, suit up, mount up, and gun them down. Oh, God. Damn. And codexes Codexes are a late game unit for anybody wondering. They are one of the more frustrating units the enemy likes to throw at you because as they take damage, they can clone themselves. They divide like amoeba, as Troy likes to put it. They have psionic explosive powers. Their assault rifles actually do a decent amount of damage. Yeah, and they teleport in order to avoid Overwatch. The only time they will take Overwatch damage is when you expose a pod containing a codex. Because for some reason they will run to cover when exposed as a pod that was unaware, rather than teleport to it. I do not know why. But that's the only time Overwatch ever works on them, and I figured that's a note worth making against a codex. Oh, okay, yeah, there's that. But yeah, deep cover can get you out of some really, really stupid, serious issues. But I have had to get myself out of really, really stupid, serious issues without it. And let me tell you, the reliability factor on my plans is... the reliability factor is not nearly as good as combining this with 8 Protocol. Yeah, like, I made it work. I'll say that. In my own defense, I made it work, but it was not a good decision. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Now, I wouldn't exactly call it the best strategy, but I would call it a good strategy if you get in over your head by mistake, which is a very real possibility in this game, particularly in later instances of the game, where more and more pods are showing up on the map, and stronger enemies are being mixed in with them. Particularly in War of the Chosen, that could probably be a major lifesaver. We get to Colonel, and I'll be real... Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Oh, hey there, Lord West. I'm sorry. Welcome to the stream, if you're still watching. Yeah, exactly. No. The last set of abilities on Colonel, I'll be real, they're good abilities before anybody gets me wrong here, but they're probably the least valuable skills of this particular class for a few reasons. You could try to slap the shit out of me for saying that, but the reason why I say that is because rapid fire. Fire twice at an enemy, each shot suffers an aim penalty of 15-point accuracy reduction. Reaper mode. Devastating chain melee attack where the first melee attack cannot miss. Each melee kill in Reaper mode grants an extra action, but further melee attacks have reduced damage. I do not fucking like Reaper mode that much, but it's more reliable than rapid fire. Now that said,
You've done a hell of a job keeping this ship together, Doctor.
Before anybody tries to crucify my ass,
about losing one of their own.
I doubt they thought anyone could
rapid
get this
fire
heat
can
airborne again.
I'm more than happy to prove them wrong.
rapid fire can be very useful, especially if you're up close to the point where you practically can't miss. This is one of the skills that was retained by the Ranger from the Assault class in XCOM Enemy Unknown / Within, which is the predecessor to this game. This particular skill is actually kind of nasty if it works. The problem is that it reduces your aim, and if you aren't practically up against the enemy, you can have problems hitting them. There are ways to help fix that, such as holo targeting. And there are multiple class types that can get holo targeting in this game. Holo targeting gives you +10 aim. That's not going to totally offset the loss, but -5 accuracy points versus 15 is still a marginally huge improvement. 2/3 of that accuracy issue are solved in one simple use of holo targeting. That requires a grenadier, but grenadiers are usually close to rangers anyway. Now, rapid fire is a good way to pound down a particularly annoying, frustrating, difficult, or durable enemy. Not necessarily the only way to do this. Just throwing that out there. The reason why I consider this one of the least valuable skills is because stealth, melee, run and gun, and assassination are what this class's bread and butter are. This helps pile on pressure. On higher difficulties, I can actually see a major argument advocating for rapid fire just because of the sheer amount of damage that it can fucking do, and the fact that enemies have slightly additional health, in addition to the fact that they will often have additional armor, and you need to be able to cut through armor plating. You notice this unit has Shredder? Guess what? This class doesn't normally get that. And shotguns don't normally shred armor. So there are reasons to take rapid fire before anyone, wants to crucify me. I take Reaper because it is somewhat more reliable in the first kill department. However, the more that I use Reaper mode, the more I realize Reaper mode has a very, very, very serious problem. If you are not chain meleeing enemies, you cannot keep this skill going. I will be showing off more soldiers than the majority of my troops, don't worry, in this showcase video. That's gonna happen, Lord Wes. That will happen. And if you want me to, here is kind of the list of soldiers that I ended up with. It's more than a little massive. In XCOM War of the Chosen, you kind of need to have a small army. The game is built around it with its extra mechanics. Reaper mode's biggest problem is that if you are not chain meleeing into multiple enemies that you can just shank, you aren't getting value out of this. And here's the problem. Your damage goes down every time you kill an enemy. That reduces the likelihood of you being able to continue to take advantage of the skill. In addition, I don't believe you get additional mobility every single time you do this, so since you don't get more movement, if you just meleeed into an enemy that does not have other units in melee range, congratulations, you wasted your Reaper mode. I have a million dumbass answers. Personally, I think you only need to make one extra kill to make this have some value at least. Especially... I was about to say, particularly on Legendary, because I wasn't done answering that question. Particularly on Legendary, one additional kill, that's one less enhanced problem to worry about on max difficulty. Tell me. Yep. Yes, and... yeah, the issue that I have with Reaper is that Reaper tries to emphasize melee, but I don't feel like Reaper is properly put together for you to be able to really abuse the melee. It doesn't stop you from using your shotgun, which is probably the biggest reason why it's designed the way it is. But It gets value out of just one kill, but the reason why I call this one of the least valuable skills to a ranger, it adds to a ranger's lethality. It does not add to the ranger's utility. But sometimes adding to a unit's lethality is really all you need. Straight up, that's really all you fucking need. And if this gets you one kill, it can get you another kill if you have an enemy in shotgun distance. Because you go from being Jack the Ripper to Doom Guy in about 0.6 seconds. Now, Troy, if you have alternative options or opinions on this, please go ahead. That's just kind of my take on these abilities, but I feel like the core of this class is really here, if that makes any sense. It's not that this gives them nothing, it's that I feel like the core of what you're doing with this class is largely here. Okay. Yes. That's strange. Yeah, Andromedons take a ridiculous amount of fucking punishment. I hate Andromedons. Okay. Right. Right. Loving what? Sorry. My girlfriend. Oh. Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
We're making progress against the aliens, and it sounds like we're starting to get the civilians' attention in the colonies. It's important that the crew knows people out there need
Okay.
us and want us to help turn this thing
So,
around. They have to know there's a reason to endure all this.
The next class I want to discuss is a specialist. Specialists use assault rifles. This one's using a unique rifle. This is the Dark Lance. It's basically the weapon you get for killing the Warlock Chosen. It's not a typical weapon that you'll get, but it is a very badass addition to your arsenal, and it's nice. I am going to note a few things about the Specialist, because Reddit is never the best place to go for information. Sometimes you get really good information there. Sometimes you get really, really shitty information there. One of the reasons why I set up the showcase video stream, and why I want to do more in the future, because I've already spent an hour and a half on this, and I'm going to stop at the 2-hour mark, is because I want people to be able to understand what these classes are capable of on a fundamental level. So, for some reason, Troy's audio wasn't really coming through very clearly on a lot of this. I don't know... Yeah, I don't know why, but I will explain this here. You can reload with run and gun. This is something that the game doesn't tell you. You can move, you can reload, and then run and gun, because it technically adds a third action point to your action bar. You can use deep cover to basically make a target from your ranger immune to gunfire of virtually any kind. And the reason why you want to do this is because maybe you activated a few too many pods and you need some help. It's a desperation strategy, but it is one that is almost guaranteed to completely work. Implaceable, you use this basically, you score a kill, you're granted a bonus move so you can run into fire and get out of fire. Rapid fire is pretty ideal for killing extremely durable enemies like Andromedons and Gatekeepers, because it allows you to pile on a lot of damage. Reaper you use as a way to guarantee at least one extra kill, and possibly get 2. I wanted to point a lot of that out, because those I feel like are the most important points from our discussion to have here. Now, thanks to Troy, I have learned a ridiculous amount about shit like hack and aid protocol. And medical, combat, revival, haywire, field medic, scanning protocol, covering fire, threat assessment, veteran vigilant, guardian, restoration, capacitor discharge. When it comes to specialists, the biggest consensus that I found online is that this is a unit that a lot of people do not know how to fucking use. Because everybody's like, well, I always feel like the specialist is kind of meh. I always feel like the specialist is just eh. They don't really seem like they're that good on the offense, they're that good on the defense. All of you are stupid. They're a support unit. Support units are good for both offense and defense accordingly. You're not using all of their abilities correctly if that is what you think this class is. And I know that from experience, alright? I'm not calling you stupid because I magically know better than you. I'm calling you stupid because from experience, not using all of the abilities on this class made me eat a lot of shit that I really didn't have to. So let's go through this, okay? Hack is a skill that you get by default. Hack allows you to be able to remotely breach security network access points. The greatest consensus online is that hack is a meh ability. This is a mistake. Absolutely fucking huge mistake to look at this and go, that's meh. No, it isn't. You want to know what's meh? The fact that you're dumb enough to think that by the fact that you can't hack literally everything. Any mechanized unit that is cybernetic or robotic to a severe degree can be hacked. I'm going to tell everybody about the Andromedon. The Andromedon is an alien that basically lives in a toxic acid ooze and is kept inside of a mechanized combat shell that can shoot acid balls, fire a plasma shotgun, punch you in the face so hard it busts half the fucking ground around it into shit. And when it dies, on top of starting with 4 armor on lower difficulties, I believe it gets 5, perhaps 6 armor on Legendary. So you really need to shred its armor and have a concerted effort to bring it down. Well, here's the thing. It revives after it dies because the shell will start moving again and leaking acid everywhere. You want to know what makes an Andromedon a major problem for the enemy? When you mind control it with a Psi operative until it dies, and then you hack it with a fucking specialist right afterward, so that the shell gets taken over for another few turns. Now, that's just one application. One other application, which is the most safe, succinct, and combat viable application that you can use all the time, is to hack an enemy mech unit and shut it down for a couple of turns. I really feel like people sleep on the value of denying action economy on the enemy over killing them. And I know because I used to make the same mistake. I'm not talking out of inexperience here, alright? I'm not talking out of my ass. But that's a haywire protocol ability. We'll get to that. Hacking the shit, the sensor nodes and the other tech stuff that's scattered around the maps can allow you to disorient enemies, increase the stat of your hacker so that they can hack more, grant you facility leads, intel caches, supply caches, alloy caches, Illyrium crystal caches. It's how you get extra loot faster. It's how you speed up your progress in the game precipitously. There's almost always something on a map to hack. And it's almost always a gamble, and sometimes that gamble doesn't pay off. But the safer options still net you something, and something is better than not getting anything. Period. Aid Protocol. Aid Protocol is another skill that you get by default. The more advanced the gremlin is, the better the skill performs. If used as the first action of a turn, this does not automatically end the turn. Its activation takes effect immediately, and it can be used to defend against reaction fire from enemies. So this means that I could use this on a ranger, give them a flat 20, 30, 40 defense bonus versus dodging, so enemy aim goes from 75 to 55, 75 to 45, 75 to 35. That doesn't even include being able to make the unit in question they're trying to target hunker down. And they will not be able to hit that target for shit. Now, combine this with deep cover, and, yeah, you now solve a shitload of problems for yourself. This... yeah. Yes, it is. I was going to get to that when we got to Haywire Protocol, because that was how you do that. No. The hack is predominantly for loot. That's what I use it for. Yeah. Now, Aid Protocol is one of the best defensive skills in the entire game. You use this to keep your units from getting shot to shit when you make a mistake in movement placement, or enemies are added in, or enemies start to get into dangerous positions, and you're really afraid of losing someone. You use this on the someone you're most afraid of losing. You back off, you take a defensive posture, you wait for an opening, and you take it after the enemy has opened fire. This is what you use Aid Protocol for, and Aid Protocol is fucking beautiful. This is a skill I sleep on so much because I fucking forget that it exists half the time. Do not forget that Aid Protocol exists! Do not forget that this skill exists! It's such a good skill! And I never fucking remember to use it. Don't be me! Use this fucking skill!
Today if it weren't for your father.
If you cannot kill every enemy that is about to shoot at you, do not hesitate to use Aid Protocol and put someone up front and hunker down.
But we'd still be half
It will make it almost impossible for them to hit the target. So the enemy will likely waste most of their shots.
Long enough to see her fly.
We owe
and
you
then
both
just
a debt of
not do
gratitude.
anything,
You
and
can
then
honor
your
his
next
memory by
turn,
using the
you
ship
can
to destroy
counterattack
the
and
aliens
rip the
wherever we
entire
find
enemy
them.
formation
You'll get no
apart.
argument here.
That's one of the best fucking uses for aid protocol, and it's not even the only one that exists. Moving up, you'll often have to choose between medical protocol and combat protocol. Most people choose medical protocol. You want to know why I don't typically choose medical protocol? Let me tell you why I don't normally choose medical protocol. Medical protocol implies that you have fucked up and you need to heal after you've already made a mistake. 80% of the time, if your units are taking damage, it is your fault. There's a 20%, iffy window as to whether or not you could have actually predicted that or needed hindsight and probably didn't have it. 80% of the time, at a bare fucking minimum, if your units are taking shots, it's your fucking fault. Sometimes they're going to take shots and there's nothing you can do to prevent that. Medical protocol isn't the worst thing in the world to have when that occurs. Combat protocol? This is a skill that I swear to fucking God, half the goddamn internet does not understand the value of. And I cannot for the life of me figure the fuck out why. Because ever since I started using combat protocol, I can't not have it! Let me calm down. I don't want to burst the blood vessel. The reason why I talk about combat protocol this way is very simple. Combat protocol only deals 2 damage. You get 2 uses of it per mission. You upgrade to Gremlin Mark II, it gets 4 damage. You upgrade to Gremlin Mark III, it gets 6 damage. So, why does combat protocol matter when it won't even kill the most basic of basic enemies by itself? Well, my friend, if you are stupid enough to think that that is what it is supposed to do, then that would tell me a lot about how you think you should play this game, as opposed to how you actually need to play this game. Combat protocol is not used to kill enemies at full health. Combat protocol is used to kill crippled enemies at low health that you need to die now, that you need to guarantee the kills of. Yeah, Reaper is one version of guaranteeing kills. Reaper is... Yeah. No, this is not the AoE version. Yeah, this is the targeted, ranged version of it, is what I will call it. This is basically Reaper if it was built into a gun. But instead it's built into your drone, and your drone just kind of hovers over and then tases somebody and they drop. You don't use this to kill full health enemies. If you do try to do that, you are using it wrong. You use this to finish off an enemy that has taken heavy damage and didn't die when you needed them to die so that you can make them die now. This is also highly effective against armored enemies and especially mechanical enemies because it does slightly increased damage to mechanized enemies, I believe, and it ignores armor. Combat protocol is fucking amazing because it ignores armor. Armor does not get to factor its ball sack in here. Armor gets to get bitch slapped out of the way every time you activate combat protocol. So if you've got an enemy that needs to drop dead, use combat protocol. It's what it's there for. It exists to help finish that enemy off, not kill it from full health. If you're trying to kill enemies at full health with this, you're doing it wrong. Particularly on higher difficulties, combat protocol can be an absolute fucking mandatory skill to take. And this is because enemies have an extra point of health, they sometimes have extra points of armor, they are more resistant to damage, they have extra points of dodge, the game stops giving you a aim bonus based on your lower difficulty. This doesn't use accuracy, it just does damage, and it's guaranteed damage. So use combat protocol. For the love of fucking God, use combat protocol. You'll notice that when I got the training center, I picked up medical protocol, I picked up field medic, and then in front of you guys, I picked up restoration. You want to know why? Because these are really fucking good to have, even if you don't necessarily plan on fucking up. Because you might still fuck up in ways you don't realize. And a unit might survive that at low health and need a heal in order to keep going. Next is Revival Protocol and Haywire Protocol. I'll be real, I almost never take Revival Protocol, and there's a reason for that. I typically don't use Revival Protocol because I don't tend to get my units disoriented, stunned, panicked, or knocked unconscious very often. It does happen, but it's rare. And typically by this late in my training of learning how to play this game, I'm working so well that I can usually deal with one of my units having a meltdown, but it doesn't normally happen very often. I was actually so unused to my units getting knocked unconscious that the one time it did happen, I forgot that they were knocked out and left them to get captured and had to go reload a save to pick their unconscious body up. I did by mistake! I forgot that he was knocked unconscious and left him to get captured. So I reloaded a fucking save because I was like, no, I'm not doing that. That's not how I fucking operate. And the irony is that it was the same character that gets captured to teach you that your units can be captured and will need rescuing. Now, I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud of that at all. Now, for anybody wondering why Troy keeps making No Man... For anybody wondering why Troy keeps making No Man Left Behind references, I am the kind of guy who, when I got Resistance fighters and Advent units randomly added into my troop, I would intentionally evac them with the rest of the squad instead of leaving them to die. And sometimes I would even try to go out of my way to keep them alive. Revival Protocol is an excellent skill. It can remove the negative RNG status ailments from your units. I don't use it that often because that doesn't happen very often to me. I also feel like I get way more value out of Haywire Protocol because Haywire Protocol is where I feel like people sleep on the hacking abilities. So many people are like, yeah, Haywire Protocol's meh, I rarely ever get anything out of it. Here's my question, if you really feel like you're rarely getting anything out of it. Number one, are you remembering to use it whenever you have the opportunity and need it? If the answer is probably no, because you're not certain, then the answer is almost certainly no, you're not. Two, what are you trying to do? Take control of the unit or shut it off? If you're constantly trying to take control of the unit, no wonder you almost never get anything out of it. Typically, that's a 50-50 chance or lower. Usually, it's around the 40% chance that it will actually work and give you control of the unit. That's basically a 2 out of 3 chance that you're not going to get what you're paying for. And then you boost the enemy's stats more often than not if you don't take damage because you fucked that up. Now, why is Haywire Protocol amazing? Mechs, heavy mechs, sectopods. What am I missing? Turrets. Yeah, Advent turrets are... Yeah. Like, Advent turrets are like the only thing with a high enough chance for you to take control of it that you should actually try to do it. Mechs, heavy mechs, and sectopods. All of these can be hacked with Haywire Protocol and almost guaranteed, if not outright guaranteed, by the time you get a Tier 2 to Tier 3 Gremlin, to shut them off for 1 or 2 rounds. A lot of people will look at that and go, well, why the fuck would I do that? My response is, motherfucker, that's how you don't get a mortar shoved up your ass. That's how you don't get a goddamn heavy cannon from a plasma lancer built into the sectopod shot into your fucking face cavity. Sectopods are one of the most damaging, devastating, and durable tank units for you to conceivably deal with in this game. They're not the most powerful ones, that's an avatar, but they're one of the most durable, difficult, and devastating units to fight in terms of raw firepower, defense, and the sheer amount of armor that they have. Haywire Protocol shutting it off for 1 or 2 rounds so you can kill his posse and get into a good position to just surround him and pump him full of bullets? Or mag shots or plasma shells? That's not a bad fucking thing to do. Because while he's shut off, guess what he's not doing? Setting your ass on fire and blowing you in half. Yes, it is. Yeah, that's my problem that I have with that. Save scumming is something that, to a degree, I believe is kind of fair. Because if you made a mistake by misclicking like I sometimes do, I think it's more than fair to back yourself up. In other instances, if you're not actually doing a hardcore run and you're just playing casually, fine, fucking save scum. I do that all the time. If you're going to try to tell me that the fact that you're not able to take control of a mechanized unit very often is why you don't use Haywire Protocol, I have a very important news flash for every single individual who has that problem. You are using it wrong! You are using the skill wrong. Why are you using it wrong? Very, very, very simple. Don't try to take control of the enemy if you don't think you can. Shut the enemy the fuck off. And then you don't have to deal with it until you can deal with it. That makes it way easier for you to be able to actually manage an enemy pod. You don't take mortars from a mech that's shut off. You don't take heavy plasma shells to the face from a sectopod that is shut off, and who will then overwatch after they blow your fucking asshole apart with 50 red hot pokers shot at you at Mach fuck. I say this on purpose, I say this with care, I say this with thought, and I say this with the understanding that people are greedy, and greed is good until you let it push you to do very reckless gambles. If you are gambling all the time, that says something about you and how you're playing the skill wrong, instead of considering every option and sometimes playing it safe over trying to go for broke when your ass is not in a position to take that risk. If you can take that risk and still get away with it if it fails, then fine, do it. If you don't think you can, then don't do it. That's how you die. Next is a choice between Field Medic and Scanning Protocol. Field Medic, again, it's really nice. It gives you 3 charges on a med kit, and you can use that when combined with Medical Protocol to heal allies at a distance. Again, if you're healing your allies a lot of the time that you really need this skill to keep them alive, you're probably playing really poorly and you're not actually using all of your strategic assets appropriately. Raises own hand. Trust me, guys, I'm speaking from experience here. I'm not just trying to act like a pretentious asshole. Scanning Protocol. This, I swear to God, is another one of the most slept-on skills in the universe. During Advent Retaliation missions, you can use this to literally expose faceless amongst civilian crowds. During any mission that is not an Advent Retaliation mission, you can use this to see if an enemy pod is in the immediate vicinity of your forces. At the start of a mission, in the middle of a mission. The issue is that you only get 1 or 2 scanning protocols per mission. A lot of people will probably be very hyper-conservative and not want to use it because it's consumable. Use it. It doesn't matter that it's consumable. Use it. Safety is a factor. And the safer you are, the more you can do damage to the enemy, the more you can retaliate, the more you can fuck them over. And another useful thing about this, by the way, that I haven't mentioned, not only can you use this to scan for faceless, not only can you use this to scan for enemy pods, if there are burrowed chrysalids in a sphere around you, you can use this to force them out of their burrow and shoot them in the face. Value. And all it does is scan an area. I really feel like people underestimate the sheer value of scanning protocol just because of that. I really do. And it pisses me off because a lot of people just keep treating specialists like they're meh. They're not a particularly good offensive unit. They're not a particularly good defensive unit. They're meant to be the kind of unit that flexes itself between supporting the squad between fights, applying pressure with the rest of the offensive parts of the squad during fights, and applying and relieving the pressure of the enemy when you need to react defensively during fights. This is a class that its utility may ebb and flow as the battle goes on and a mission drags longer. That's not a problem. They're very flexible. They're supposed to be flexible. It's not a bad thing for this unit class and archetype to be flexible. I would actually argue that's one of the biggest benefits to specialists. They have assault rifles for their primary weapons. Assault rifles don't have any particularly unique statistics other than being an excellent general purpose firearm. They don't need to be the exact right solution to a problem, they just need to be a good answer to it. And that's all they are. You're fine. It's fine. Now, threat assessment and covering fire. Neither of these are bad skills. Both of these are actually fucking amazing skills, actually. I would argue covering fire is one of the best skills in the game. And so is threat assessment. Aid protocol now grants the target a covering fire overwatch shot, but the aid protocol cooldown is increased by 1 turn. Aid protocol has a 1-turn cooldown. You can use it literally every other round. This makes it so that you have to wait 2 turns. Not that big of a deal considering you just conferred overwatch to a unit that didn't have it. Especially when you added in a defensive boost to that unit in the process of doing that. That means that unit now is almost untouchable if you hunker down, has active ability to use Overwatch, so they can attack an enemy while the enemy tries to move. Obviously, Overwatch has its weaknesses, don't get me wrong, but that's still useful. Precisely, yes it is. It's an attack action that costs 1 action, and it also adds an additional action to a unit that is stuck in a very bad defensive posture scenario. It is just pure value. There's nothing bad about threat assessment. Threat assessment is one of the game's greatest skills. Covering fire. Overwatch shots can now be triggered by enemy actions, not just their movement. Enemies throw grenades, enemies shoot their guns off. If they do it in the presence of a specialist, that activates and allows them to be able to use a reaction shot against them. This is useful because it adds more dynamic depth to Overwatch. So specialists are now even more versatile and utilitarian in their Overwatch use. Next is a choice between Ever Vigilant and Guardian. I never take Ever Vigilant, but there's a case for it, and we're going to talk about it. If you spend all your action points on moving, you are granted an automatic Overwatch shot at the end of the turn. That right there is why I never take it, if you spend all your actions on moves. This is such a technical and ability-focused class, I almost never just move. I already know what the usage of it is. If you need the unit to catch up to somebody, or things like that, or you need the unit to be able to sprint whilst still being able to be dangerous if somebody can attack it or get in range to attack it, it now has that value.
I've seen, you could use
it has that as an automatic bonus. Okay, so it's useful in missions where you're timed. Okay. Okay, that's actually very useful. Like I said, there's a case for this skill. It's not. I never take it. I didn't mean to say when I never take it that it has no case. It has a case. It absolutely has a case, and you absolutely should consider it. I don't take it because Guardian is fucking devastating. Ever since I watched Troy when we did an XCOM 2 LP together, where I was a commentator and he was the player, I watched him kill a sectopod the instant that it walked into Overwatch view. Because one specialist repeatedly shot it to death with a blaster. What this does is every successful Overwatch shot, there's a 50-50 chance another shot will be taken. Yes and no. It typically only ever does this against one singular enemy if that enemy lives through the first shot but still gets hit. Troy, have you ever had an instance where it will do that against multiple different types of enemies in a single round of Overwatch? Okay. Yes. Yes, and we'll get into their weaponry in just a second and what I like to throw on these guys too, because extended magazines are definitely one of those things. The thing about Guardian is Guardian basically gives you an opportunity, especially when you start Overwatch ambushes, to just fuck up enemies. Like, this is just, the more it re-rolls success, the more brutal and violent and successful the results. The more deadly the results. The more painful the results on the enemy, for the enemy. And it like, 50% is not perfect. But it is viable, it is useful, and it is fun. And it is absolutely worth doing. And Guardian can be one of the best defensive abilities that you use when you need to try and take pressure off of yourself if you know more enemies are coming or you know somebody's trying to advance on you. Sometimes Guardian can be a better solution than trying to shoot when you don't have a good shot. Because Guardian might give you more chances to shoot. Next is the choice between Restoration and Capacitor Discharge. Restoration has a gremlin fly to each squad member to heal them or revive them from being knocked down and bled out, or from suffering a status ailment. Restoration is really good if you just took a really bad series of hits on a mission and you need to be able to keep going. That is the predominant reason you use this. The other reason you use it is a lot of your squad members are really fucked up in various ways. Some of them have status ailments, some of them have low health. This is a solution to fixing all of that to a degree in one action. By all means. That's pretty much all I have to say about Restoration. Something else entirely. Yeah, you can use this to save one soldier from a particularly bad situation. That's definitely major value out of it. It's also ideal though if your entire squad gets fucked up. This is a very cheap and easy solution and that is efficient on action points to get everybody back into fighting shape and letting everybody else try to counterattack or finish off whatever the hell you're doing. That's the situation you would typically use it on, but you can also use it to save even just one life. And Troy is right to say that if it saves a life, it's done its job. Yes. Yes, and that's actually what I was going to say about capacitor discharge. Capacitor discharge, a bit like combat protocol, is guaranteed damage. It's 8 to 10 damage with a max level gremlin. It is one of the more powerful guaranteed damage abilities in the game. It has a wide AoE, almost like a grenade, and in fact, I would argue its AoE is about as wide as a grenade fired from a heavy grenade launcher. And its damage is insane. Organic units take a substantial amount of damage. Robotic units take even more. This skill, like combat protocol, ignores armor. Armor will not be a factor. It destroys enemies. It fucks up enemies. It's good for killing off a lot of crippled enemies. It's good for killing off one particularly annoying enemy. It's good for finishing off a wide variety of problems. The reason why a lot of people get tricked into thinking explicitly large on these is because this is a skill that I have used before to kill or cripple an entire enemy pod. And it can and will do that every time you use it. And it is a one-off permission. However, again, if it kills one enemy, it has achieved a level of value. Just like if this saves one life, it has value. But if you start to find yourself on the back foot, and you've been stupid and you're hoarding this, stop doing it and start considering, can I use capacitor discharge to solve this problem? Even if you only kill one enemy, will it solve the problem? Because you need it to solve a problem. It's better if it kills multiple enemies, but even killing one enemy gets you value. The same thing with combat protocol. Now the reason why... Sorry. Yes, unless you're doing a defense mission to protect the Sky Ranger, their lives are a finite resource. And you need to be very well aware of that. Yes. Yeah, this is one of the best ways to lock down gatekeepers. That's definitely true, and that's one of my favorite aspects of it. I remember in my last campaign I had capacitor discharge, and I fell in love with this skill. This was a beautifully deadly skill. Offensively, defensively, this skill has a lot of value and potential. I think the reason why a lot of people just kind of sleep on a lot of the utility of the specialist, they don't realize the sheer amount of utility and nuance they have. They don't. And specialists are one of the best in the game for that. In terms of their weaponry, let's go ahead and go into View Soldiers tab here. If you're not using a disruptor rifle,
to take from the elders what is most precious to them,
which there's only one in the entire game, you will probably end up with a magnetic or an assault or a plasma.
If the Templar followers
there are
their goal to the elders,
3 different attachments, actually 4, that are ideal for plasma rifles, as I see it. Autoloader, so that you can reload as a free action and not consume your reload. That's probably better on shotguns, but it's still useful here. The stock, so that if you miss, you still deal damage to the target on some level, preferably superior, so you're maximizing that miss damage. The scope, so that you have increased hit chance. Yes, that increased hit chance is affected by the does affect the Overwatch hit chance. The scope adds aim to the Overwatch, and that's useful. And the last one is the expanded magazine. The expanded magazine is never bad. It's good for every class. Every class wants an expanded magazine. Grenadiers are the most hungry for it. But sharpshooters and rangers and specialists all get a lot out of that too. The Psi Operative doesn't really care about getting magazines. The Psi Operative is not going to use their gun very much. They will still use it, don't get me wrong. But I think even Troy will agree, Psi Operatives don't prioritize their firearm, they prioritize their powers. Well, yeah, you use it on those too, don't get me wrong. It's not like it has no value. That does matter, but that's the first use in a fight, and then for the most part of those battles, he's probably trying to dominate somebody, lance somebody, drive someone insane, or light them on fire. Yes, their gun is more useful to them the lower level they are, but as they start to peak, their powers start to really dominate what you do with them. For anybody wondering, personal combat sims are good for adding HP, adding will, adding other bonuses to yourself. It's pretty variable what PCSs work for what unit. Specialists probably want a mixture of extra HP, extra will, or extra mobility because they're on the front lines. They're either in the middle of the pack or in the front of it. But they're really, really good units, and you can take advantage of a lot. In terms of utility items, I typically give them the Skulljack because when they skull mine enemies, a high hacking stat really, really helps you there. So that you can get even more loot, more leads, more bonuses, more benefits. Just makes you a better killer. And it makes you, it's more efficient and more rewarding. In terms of what suits they can take advantage of, they can use the Serpent Armor, the Icarus Armor. The Icarus Armor is not what I would necessarily say is ideal for them. They don't need to teleport around. They should always be near the middle of the squad. Spider suits and exosuits are okay. Wraith suits and war suits are better. There's not really a bad choice. Even going with just regular Warden Armor isn't bad since they can have 2 utility items. You can take away their grenades and give them medkits if you wanted, which you might do for some of them, because their med kit allows them to be able to heal allies, since this one has all of his medical abilities now, on top of all of his offensive abilities. If I need him to do anything in particular, he can now do it. But med kits are not bad. The Skulljack isn't bad. It's not mandatory. You don't need the Skulljack. You can use something else if you want. A battle scanner, smoke bomb, blue screen rounds, EMP bombs, plasma grenades, none of this is bad to put on them. They're very, very general purpose units. And that's fine. That's all they need to be. They're meant to be a unit that is extremely flexible for offense, support, and defense. This unit does it all. Rangers almost always do either offense or support. These guys do it all, and they do it more flexibly than most classes. They don't necessarily handle everything better than any class. but they usually have some kind of answer to a problem, if that makes any sense and helps you. And I consider them to be one of the hearts and souls of the class setup. Unfortunately, we are out of time in this stream. I'm very sorry that we're out of time. I need to get prepped for bed and start settling in for the evening, but I want to do another one of these at a later date when I get the chance. Maybe tomorrow, maybe not. But my my main point is we're going to go into the sharpshooter next, because the sharpshooter is another class that I feel like the internet is very divided about, or is very ignorant about. Because a lot of the takes I have seen on this class are that this is a bad class. But somehow it's also good. That doesn't make any sense. And again, if that is how you think of a sharpshooter, I'm just going to say it. You're using the sharpshooter wrong. Thank you all very much for watching. Troy, thank you very much for coming along and having this conversation with me, this back and forth. I'm sorry that for some reason your audio wasn't recording. I will try to figure out what to do with that. I did. But next time we're going to talk about the sharpshooter. Hopefully we'll get as well to the grenadier, and then we'll discuss the Psi operative, and then we'll get on to War of the Chosen's heroes. Because these are hero classes. Have a good night, everybody. I've been Savage Hound Dusk, and I'll see you next time.